and welcome along to Edie Extra from the wonderful city that is New York. We are here on the ground for New York Climate Week. We're stood against this amazing skyline outside the Hub Live, which is one of many events being convened by Climate Group. And I'm delighted to be joined here by none other than Climate Group Chief Executive Helen Clarkson. Helen, hello. So many events happening across this week. You're a lady in high demand, so thanks so much for joining us. Talk to us a little bit about this week so far, any of the kind of the mood generally that's coming out of the week so far, and any of the key announcements.
Yeah, so it's day 3. We kicked off on Sunday, we're now on Tuesday, and it's been just phenomenal so far. We've had lots of events happening, events that Climate Group has run, and then also events happening across New York, lots of different people. I'd say the mood, as always, is quite frantic. People, our theme is it's time, and we're trying to bring that sense of urgency, but there's also just that sense that trying to get from one end of the city to your next event brings with it, but in a way that sort of reminds people how much there is to do. Some of the big things that are coming out, I think, and the things you're hearing in terms of mood are, I've heard something, it's like rational optimism or something like that. It's about people feeling optimistic that a lot's happening, and visibly there's a lot happening through the, as I mentioned, all these events and announcements and things, but also it's grounded in sort of seeing that change is happening, seeing that people are committed, and also the action that they're taking. And I think everyone is feeding off each other's energy in that regard. Yeah,
rational optimism I think sums up this day quite well, I would agree. One of the key announcements that's come out earlier on this afternoon is this 24/7 carbon-free coalition, which has been convened by Climate Group in association with a number of other really large corporates. Talk to us a little bit about that particular initiative and its aims.
Yeah, so we're looking at sort of what's beyond RE100. We have the RE100 commitment at Climate Group, which is 100% renewable electricity, but some companies coming to us and saying, okay, well, what's kind of the next step? Within RE100, you're matching, and it's still a really ambitious commitment. You're trying to match your electricity demand annually. With 24/7, they're saying, what happens if we try to match it in 15-minute increments? And so what you need to do that is a lot of things around data in particular, understanding usage, and pushing energy efficiency, obviously battery storage, all these things. So it's really interesting to have corporates come and say, okay, what's the next level? How do we go even further with our commitments? And so that's really exciting. It's really experimental though, and I think one of the things, and why it's a small group of companies taking that first step, is saying, right, we've got to pilot this, we've got to go at this in new ways, and it's a bit kind of learning by doing as well, and exploration together.
Yeah, I was going to ask, it's always difficult when I pin you down to just one particular thing, but is there an area that's coming through in that initiative that you know that corporates need to be focusing on a lot more in order to make 24/7 carbon-free electricity a reality? Well,
I think actually it's kind of maybe it's because my degree's in philosophy, it's kind of philosophical, but it's like embracing complexity. So even in, we're really just launching it today, so having initial conversations with companies and sort of watching them go through the thing of like, we have no idea really how we're going to do that, but we're comfortable getting together in a group and exploring that together and sort of setting ourselves milestones. So it's ambitious, but we've sort of set it out stepwise how they're going to get to that target.
A colleague of yours off camera just told me that there's over 900 events happening across this city over the coming few days. What does a successful Climate Week really look like for you?
One of the things, I'm sort of playing off we've had, this is the vibe summer, haven't we, in the States. So some of it is about those vibes and people feeling that there are lots of other people working on climate, because it can feel quite lonely. Am I the only person who cares about this? So actually you see the number of events that are happening, and they range from really detailed technical discussions, we are kind of getting under the nitty gritty, to things, plays and poetry reading. So it's a really, really, broad church in that sense. And I think you get that feeling of there's a lot of action happening, which, that's what coming together does, because if you just spend your time online, you might be convinced that there's a lot of dissent around climate. Actually, there isn't. There was a UNDP survey that said 80% of people globally, in all countries, want their governments to take stronger action on climate. And this is, in a way, the embodiment of that is people coming together saying, we want stronger action and we're here to do it.
Yeah, and on that action point, we're sitting on what could be a really crucial inflection point for climate action globally. We've got COP16, COP29, just both around the corner. What for you, I guess, as we're entering this final quarter of 2024, what does a successful remainder of the year look like? Is there any particular actions or developments you're hoping to see come?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about COP29 as the finance COP. And so I think seeing some successful outcomes from there, next year, there has been a lot of talk about next year, COP30, Brazil, it's when all the countries have to come back with their ratcheted, as they say, national determined contributions. So that's a big moment under the Paris Agreement, but that doesn't mean you can skip the COPs in between, and so it's up to the COP host to say this is the theme. And Azerbaijan's been clear they want to talk about finance, they want to focus on finance. So I hope that leads to some concrete outcomes on finance, because one of the things that we've had as our theme this week, it's time to pay up. The global north has got to take its historic responsibility and actually got to get serious about climate finance and unleash the billions that's needed to deal with this.
On that note of its time, it would be remiss of me to not use that nice strapline for this week as a closing basis for a closing question. And from a corporate perspective, what does its time look like? What, I guess, one step or action are you keen for corporates to be taking so that in a year's time we're maybe stood on another rooftop reflecting on a successful year?
Really translating their long-term plans into actions, bold actions for the next year. And so it's really, let's get very specific, let's get very concrete, and make sure that your boards know that yes, that target date you set might be beyond their longevity, but that won't be delivered unless it's started now. And I've heard conversations today about legacy and it being the seeds you plant now grow for the future, and it's that kind of thinking that it's worth planting those seeds now, even if that those target dates are far out. It's what you do right now that's going to start to bear fruit.
Very rationally optimistic note to end on. Thanks so much, Helen, for joining us. 900 events happening across the week. I'm sure you're speaking in many of them, quite a lot of them. So I'll let you get going. And thanks so much for tuning in at home, and hopefully see you again for another episode of Edie Extra very soon.